To begin with, I feel I'm going to ask Joanna a question about her project Native Scientist. And I can see that you are working with different communities, for example, with the project. Do you vary the project with different audiences, and how do you do this, for example?
Well, the format is quite the same. So, it's the 4 or 5 scientists going to the school to talk to a group of 20 kids, more or less. But we see a lot of cultural differences. It's different, for example, to work with the Spanish-speaking community in London, or the Portuguese, or the French, or the Turkish, or the Estonian. We've seen that, for example, the reasons or the motivations of the scientists to do the outreach are different. For some, for some languages, it's more about giving back to society, to your own country. For other cultures, it's more about bridging the gap between science and society in general. It doesn't really matter that there is this cultural identity. And for others, it's just a matter of duty, something you have to do to increase the impact of your research and to not just have your research stay within the lab. Then we've also seen difference in terms of the value that people give to languages. So it's different if you say you're doing science workshops in German in the UK, or if you say you're doing science workshops in Romanian in the UK. This is because people give different value to languages, and that this value usually comes associated with the economic value of that language or that country. But for us, it shouldn't be like that. The value of a child to speak more than one language doesn't, it is not influenced by the economic value of that language. The value of a language to speak, of a child to be multilingual exists no matter if you are speaking English, Portuguese, Romanian, or English, Spanish, and German, for example. So it's just important because it allows you to communicate with your grandparents, to be able to speak the language of the country when you visit your parents' homeland. It allows you, when you're traveling, to connect deeper with more people. And it gives you cognitive flexibility. There is a lot of research showing that actually multilingual people have shown more cognitive flexibility. It has also been shown that it delays the onset of diseases like Alzheimer, for example. So it's just important. It's like important to speak different languages. Yeah, and then of course it's a lot dependent also on the level of maturity of public engagement and science outreach of the different cultures. Like for example, in the UK, everyone is very aware and it's very normal to do science outreach. And so English-speaking scientists will do it very, very easily. I cannot hear you, sorry.
Don't worry. I totally understand where you're coming from there, Joanna, and I can see what you mean, the differences between different cultures and in different countries, absolutely. And yeah, you are definitely helping bridge the gap between different speakers, for example. I'm going to now move on to Fulvio and ask him a question about frontiers for young minds. Do you have any challenges? You mentioned about, for example, only 1 in 4 of the papers get published. What other challenges have you come across with the journal?
Probably, no, truly the issues are about contributors. They find it very difficult to kind of separate themselves from the mission of the journal. So, everyone writes a paper and then immediately they just blurt it out and they want you to put it in Frontiers for Young Mind, job done. But, if you're talking about phosphorylation of a tiny little molecule inside a tiny little cells in obscure disease, it's very difficult for other people to follow. So we always suggest to give the bigger picture first and then, refer to what they've done. But in portraying the bigger picture, they feel like they've lost their voice in a way. So that is the tricky bit. And obviously the other tricky bit is the time that this requires. So I myself, I was awarded a quite substantial public engagement fund from QMUL at that point to train, science mentor and associate editor in London. I was focusing specifically to East London as an area. And when we trained all the staff at school, they all replied to me and said, look, this is amazing, but we haven't got the time. We haven't got the time basically just to do what we normally do. We would like, scientists to help us, not to give us extra work to do. That has been, again, very, very revealing for me and for the journal, because we understood, something by receiving, the comment of the users, so to speak. And so that has been another aspect of this new journey that we're trying to change in a way. So, we use glossary, or there's been a collection about immune cells, and so then the teachers can use those collection to explore, basic concepts in immunology. That would be one option, but obviously it goes in other fields as well.
That makes a lot of sense. I feel you are trying to reach out to the younger audiences, but still kind of keep the integrity of the science regardless.
Yeah, yeah, and it's tricky. It's really tricky, because also, what you get a lot is, oh, don't eat this XYZ because it's bad for you, or, eat this other thing. And you don't want the journal to become a platform for the scientists to promote their own thinking, their own way of seeing things. So it's engaging with the authors has been quite a challenge. We've been challenged more than once. And there is actual time that you have to spend on Zoom with these people and trying to explain what the platform is about. And simply, just go and read the other paper. If you read the other paper, you have a clear idea of what the journal will take.
Brilliant. I'm going to move back to Joanna now. And I've just realized there's a question in the chat from Caitlin about evaluation and what kinds of evaluation you do on your project, Native Scientists, and how this would perhaps change the direction of the project in future.
So we do two types of evaluation. We do the quick assessment at the end of the workshop to see if, if the basic levels of quality were met. So like, did you like to meet the scientist? Did you learn something new? How much did you learn? What word would you use to describe the workshop? Or, like, is it important for you to speak more than one language? And so depending on the rates of answer that we get, we know if the workshop met the necessary standard of quality or not. And then we have these collaborations with the researchers to do more in-depth studies with pre-questionnaires, post-questionnaires, and delayed questionnaires, with control groups and intervention groups, always taking in consideration that the control groups also needs to have intervention for ethical reasons. So we started by looking at the impact on science motivation and attitudes toward languages, but we want to go beyond that. We want to see also the impact on identity formation, tolerance, other emotions and constructs that go beyond just boosting the motivation for science, because we really believe that what we see in some children is actually like an eye-opening event that shows them another world that if they want to, they can explore. So it would be important to study that a little bit further, why this is happening. We believe that it's happening because for us, the science is the vehicle. Science is the vehicle to create meaningful connections of these children with science. But we need to study this deep.
That's it. Thank you, Joanna. Now a question for both of you, really. I mean, this is the Bioscience Symposium, but I do wonder if you can use both native scientists, or have you used the Frontiers of Young Minds for other, in other contexts, for example, in other subjects, or would you be thinking about expanding this to other areas?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I mean, subjects, I did say that there are, it's not just biomedical, so there are the subjects, and we're expanding, the journal is expanding more and more the subjects. Personally, and I've tried this, or I'm still trying, I would organize a Frontiers for All Mind. So that's another, major part of society that, you get these articles written in character 9 or 8 Emil, that who's going to read that? I'm 51 and sometimes I can't read it. So I have a huge screen to even read my documents, and there is no sign of understanding and inclusivity, what really means. And also always putting yourself from the perspective of another audience, which is the older audience, that some things that were not even there. And they need to be heard in using their own language.
May I I would actually, I'm very also curious to ask Fulvio if, so at the moment, Frontiers for Young Minds is only available to English-speaking countries, because I'm guessing all the process happens in English. Is this correct?
Yeah, so I put the answer in the chat. At the moment,
okay,
no, it's okay. But there are translations that are happening at the moment in multiple languages, and we rely obviously on academics and other people to do that. That being said, if the science mentor, is the same language of the class, then they can do it in their own language, and then that's the function of the science mentor. They can translate it in English if they want. So they still, that's why there are science mentors to include people that they might not be English speaking, and yet the whole process can still be happening even if you don't know English.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Go on, Joanna.
Yeah, in terms of expanding, so our workshop is it's multidisciplinary, so it's like the science tapas concept that I explained. We believe that it's important for us to to do things very well and with consistency. So we've really focused all these years, these 8 years, in perfecting our format and our way of working and our internal processes for managing all of these. So indeed, I think you can expand, but then when you have these ideas for expansion, and of course the expansion, the replication to other cities and other countries and other languages, this is happening. But to just take the format and reach other type of audiences, I think it's possible, but then, time is limited, resources are limited. So at the end of the day, you need to make decisions whether you want to just stay at the surface and reach a lot of different target audiences with the same format, or actually, you know, define that this is really your target audience and you want to go deep into that. And we've decided to go deep into these target audience in specific. So yeah, even though expansion is possible, the moment we are keeping the focus.
Brilliant. Thank you, Joanna. I think something you just touched upon there in terms of the difference between, I guess, in-person and digital and online engagement. There are new challenges that come about. The time, capacity, resources are still limiting. It's always a factor that we need to take account of. It doesn't completely disappear because we have moved online or digital, for instance. Fantastic. Yeah, I've just got a comment congratulating both of you on your projects. They are fantastic projects, and we're really glad to have heard from you both today.